Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Vance.
And sometimes a friend, and that's a true treasure.
Oh, yeah. And we got Chris.
Your name's not really Mark Curry. You're really Mr. Cooper.
That's all right. The main character of this book is Mark Curry. Although, Vince, you took your quote from Scrooge, didn't you?
Yes, Scrooge Mcduck.
All right. So we are reading today. We're reading The Eternals. And, of course, we're continuing our read of The Life and Times of Scrooge Mcduck. We're on issue number 7 there. So we'll do that at the end. But, yeah, right now we're doing The Eternals by Neil Gaiman. His sort of reboot. I guess this was a reboot. When's the last time before this? This was in 2006. A 6-issue miniseries that turned into 7 issues because he just needed another issue. And, yeah, when's the last time before this that an Eternals thing had happened?
So there was a maxi series in the 80s, in like 84 or 85, and then Jack Kirby's original series, I think, was 12 or 15 issues in 75. So that's like all there was. And then I think they wrapped up some Eternal stuff in some Thor stories I've never read.
Okay. Yeah, so this was Neil Gaiman bringing it back. Art by John Romita Jr. This is right after or kind of during Civil War. There's a few things that tie into it, but it's mostly independent of all that. But I didn't know anything about the Eternals at all leading into this. They got a movie coming out. Did y'all know anything?
No, it's out. It came out this past weekend. I have not seen it.
Oh, no.
I don't know when I'm going to see it. At some point, I know. I still haven't seen Shang-Chi, just because I just haven't. And I mean, it'll end up on Disney Plus hopefully in the next 2 or 3 months. And quite frankly, like Eternals it's like one of the harder sells for me because I just don't like looking at it. It looks like a bunch of like regal, like high fantasy stuff, and that usually turns me off. And I don't know any of the characters, and I don't feel like the trailer has been compelling to me to say, like, you know, the way Guardians of the Galaxy was like, this is a vibe, and I'm like, I'm down with this vibe, even though I don't know any of these characters. The Eternals is just the trailers have not really given that to me. But again, I'm also in my late 30s now. I'm not the target audience for the world, so it's fine.
But
Chris?
you say you don't like a royal, trappings, but you loved that Inhumans ABC show.
I
Vince.
did.
That was your favorite show.
It was.
Wait, are you being sarcastic? Because
I know you liked it. I never saw it. Again, I was just like turned off. The second like the Inhumans showed up, like an Ultimate Fantastic Four was like the second I turned off. And unfortunately, the Inhumans and Eternals are like stuck in my head of that. It's like these
very
are
similar. Okay,
they're people
they're
that
the same.
Doesn't know
who created the Inhumans
too much.
Jack Kirby.
Who created the Eternals?
Jack Kirby.
Who created the New Gods?
Jack Kirby.
Okay.
Jack Kirby.
These are all properties
you could
that
say and Stan Lee for the Inhumans, but really you look at all those characters; those are Jack Kirby characters.
Okay, yeah. Just for some reason, like this particular block of characters has never ever engaged me, and it's a wonder that like I said like because like I think isn't Eros or Star Fox related to the Eternals somehow?
Distantly, because then he's closely related to Thanos.
Okay.
So he's Thanos' I think brother or cousin or something.
I don't know what any of this has to do with the issue.
Well, I mean, just like I'm trying to think of like there have been times where I've been completely wrong. Like Thanos worked for me, and like I remember reading the comics the first time. Like this is you can go back to the recordings. I'm like I'm not down with any of this, and I came out a Guardians fan, so I'm like okay. Like the Eternals movie that people have already seen may be good and may scratch an itch that I really enjoy, but right now I'm just kind of like meh.
And there was a Celestial in Guardians of the Galaxy. Was it 1 or 2?
It's Nowhere, right? Is that
Nowhere is a space station in a Celestial's like body. So like sort of inceptioning the idea like there's giant space robots. Yeah. That I think we saw in one of the last trailers that they're going to be in this movie, obviously. So, very briefly, the comic explains it, but it's like Eternals are the Celestials show up to Earth. They drop off some I guess they create Eternals out of human beings. They're like ageless, immortal.
Wait. Well, okay. Well, I mean, this is kind of stuff we do learn throughout the course of this issue.
But that's, That's what the Eternals are. Like I don't.
No.
I mean,
feel
I
like
didn't know any of that. For me, this was really. I haven't seen the trailer. I don't know any of these names. This was all my first exposure to the Eternals. Period.
Definitely it
And
was in '06 or '07, and I honestly don't know why they got Neil Gaiman. Like I couldn't figure out like why they pitched this book and when and why. Like I can see it. I can see more of it like in 2015. Them saying like get a great writer to get a pitch out there because we want to make all of our IPs viable for movies. But '06 seems like a weird time to do that.
Yeah,
I mean, it
you know,
clearly worked because they're making a movie.
Yeah.
my theory is that it's Neil Gaiman, having just recently to cross promote. I was on a podcast about the Sandman a month or so ago, and he had all this like 1970s Jack Kirby references that like nobody, even 15 years later, like there were pretty deep pulls. So I think he was just a fan of Kirby's stuff and is like, oh, I can just kind of like make a modern version and use these concepts in a way that will be, entertaining and everyone will like it. So my idea is that it was probably, on a short list of things he wanted to do. And at the time, Marvel was like, well, all of the other ideas are off the table because of Civil War. This one isn't affected by anything. So you can go ahead and do that if you want.
Yeah, and he wrote 1602 kind of right before this, right?
Yeah,
Right,
4 or 5
yeah,
years
right.
before
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, probably best if you're going to write something for Marvel, just write it to be like not attached to everything that's happening in the universe proper. So
That's kind of
for
my idea of what I don't know. I haven't had any interviews. I haven't talked to anyone involved, but that to me that makes the most sense. Is he was a fan of it, and Marvel was like, well, it's not going to hurt anything.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, I think the big part of this story, for me at least, I guess we're getting a little spoilery, but I think Chris was kind of just like talking about what the Eternals are, and it's like, hey, spoilers for the story, because that's what I was kind of like leaning into for all this. So let's get into it. We'll learn more about the Eternals as we go, and we'll compare them to Inhumans, and we'll compare them to everything else, I'm sure.
And as Guardians too.
And well, yes, they are guardians of something.
Well, no, as Guardians.
Oh, as guardians,
And not Asgardians. No.
not as guardians.
Yeah, you got your blonde strong guy with laser beams. You got your like tricky magic guy who's evil.
There is a Loki dude for sure. Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
There's a lot of people are.
So let's just start right at the beginning.
Let's go.
We got a doctor in New York City. He's working
His
too
name
long.
is Mark Curry, not hanging with Mr. Cooper. It's a different Mark
Basketball
Curry.
star Mark Curry, different one.
Yeah.
Spelled the same way though.
He's a doctor. He's like gonna be a doctor, and his dreams are always weird as shit with like space monsters and stuff. And they're the rulers of the earth, and then superheroes show up, and he's like, it's a dumb dream. He's getting like 4 hours of sleep each night. His girlfriend just broke up with him over text. He's got student loans piling up. He's got a terrible life. And some blonde dude shows up and tells him, like, hey, what would you say if I told you that you're 500,000 years old and you're immortal and indestructible and you've lost all your memory and you're actually an ancient being? And he's like, nah, I'm not feeling that. And so he just walks away.
We've been watching a lot of cult documentaries, so it does feel like a very big culty pitch to be
It's a lot. It's a lot all at once. He did not present it the best way, to be honest. He didn't make a good first impression.
No, he flew too close to the sun and turned people off.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a good way to start it, to go with, like, what would you say if I told you? Like, no, just tell me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about the Matrix. Morpheus set up this whole rabbit trail where he's Neo's like, ooh, who's Morpheus? I got to know more about this guy. He didn't just show up at his job and was like,
hey, I got stuff to tell you.
The Matrix is not real.
Yeah, and they can't do, as you mentioned, Inception, like the whole idea of like putting an idea in somebody's head so they come to it themselves. They don't got that kind of time.
Nope.
No one can tell you what it is. Oh, wait, actually, I can just tell you what it is.
So Mark Curry is at home, and then this guy with the gold eyes shows up on his fire escape, and his name is Ike Harris. And so at that point, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it, like Icarus. So I guess Mark Curry, that'd be like Mercury. Okay,
Yep.
these are like gods of some sort, right? I was close. I wasn't 100% correct, but I thought Mercury and Icarus.
Yeah,
Um,
I was there too, but then I got confused for myself because I don't know my mythology, and I'm like, isn't Icarus and Mercury the
yeah,
same
they're
dude? And then no, Hermes is Mercury, so I got confused there. But that's me being dumb.
Hermes is Mercury?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it
Hermes is
that?
Greek, Mercury is Roman.
Hmm.
I didn't know they were the same version of the same thing. Anyways,
Jupiter, Zeus,
he's like,
Poseidon, Neptune. Yeah, it's all the same.
he keeps trying to convince Mark Curry of all this stuff.
Icarus
And
is actually Apollo, in if you wanted to go by like who his
Oh,
like
really?
Greek god. Yeah, that
man, I
he's.
don't know any of that stuff.
I don't. Come on, Vince, you played Hades. Come on, Kia, you played Hades. You should know this. That's what Chris would say right now.
I've never played Hades.
Well, you should. It's good.
Oh, the game. I thought you meant as a character. I've never played the role of Hades.
You weren't in Disney's Hercules, Kia?
No, I'm sorry. I was. I
Kia
promise I
is
wasn't.
going to be voicing Hades in Kingdom Hearts 4,
I
but
would
he's
have
not
done-
letting that slide right now. He's got
God,
an
no, I'm
NDA.
not touching Kingdom Hearts. Get out of here. All right. So we're getting very off topic already here. All right. Kingdom Hearts. Where were we? No. Icarus is trying to convince Mark Curry of all this business and like, hey, we're super special beings, and it's still not really working. He's like, hey, I'm gonna go be on top of this building if you want to come talk to me. Meanwhile, we meet our other kind of main characters here. Cersei asks her friend Abigail for $900 because she's trying to start a New York City party planning business. I don't know. So these were this didn't feel like a Neil Gaiman book to me. I know y'all were talking sort of ahead of time. You're like, oh boy, there's gonna be so many Neil Gaiman tropes to talk about. It didn't feel like a Neil Gaiman book to me. It felt like a lot of like very whimsical and like very like a romp in a way. And this is where I first kind of started to hit me that it was like a little different. I don't know.
I remember reading this and I was just like, what am I signing up here for? Like, I don't. I mean,
Yeah, I didn't know what was going
it
on.
also felt like I'm used to Neil Gaiman from his Terry Goodkind books and like Good Omens and Sandman and 1602. So like for him to be writing like mid 2000s New York hipsters just felt very off to me. Like from the beginning, this scene felt like weird to me.
Yeah.
Well, and also the writer of American Gods, which is kind of the same plot.
Oh, is it really? I need to watch that or read it.
Yeah, it's to somewhat spoil it. It's like the he's remembering his forgotten memories
This
of
is
being
going
a
to be
god.
American Gods. Okay, yeah, I can see that now based on
All
the plot. Okay, well, anyways,
So,
Cersei
yeah,
is this
so
girl.
she's trying to start a business.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just a regular lady who's trying to start a party planning business. That's all it is.
And again,
she's
as,
definitely
as,
not a god or an eternal.
as someone who knew way more about the Marvel universe, I was like, oh, Cersei, I know who this character is. She was on the Avengers. And then, of course, it's just like, no, this is clearly not that Cersei, or she doesn't remember, and we're not going to talk about it until Iron Man runs into her.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, that was going to be my
so-
question: is people who actually know the Eternals and know Marvel shit, like, what were your thoughts on this? It's like, oh,
Well, my thoughts were that there were way too many point of view characters, and it was way too slow.
Yeah. I couldn't tell. Like, I thought for a while. I think maybe part of the problem is that like Mark Curry feels like so overwhelmingly the main character that when it goes stretches without focusing on him, I'm like, wait a minute, what was going on?
Yeah.
and
so,
the first issue
anyways,
is like 39 pages.
It's big. Icarus is waiting on top of this roof. It's raining, and Thena shows up instead. Not Athena, just Thena, and she's always just Thena. Okay. And they're talking, they're hanging out, and then some thugs show up to like beat up. And they're like, "Hey, you Icarus!" And they throw him off the roof into some net, and they throw a bomb down on him. Man, rough. Okay. Meanwhile, the country of Vorozeka. Is this a real country? I've never heard of it.
No, this is a Latveria type.
It's like a fake country that is recently separated from Russia. They want to hire Cersei for a big party to encourage tourism, and they want people to come and ski, and they want them to shoot bears because they have too many bears, and they want scientists. They really, really, really want scientists. They really stress that. And there's definitely some shady kind of Russian stuff happening. They got the deputy prime minister. What's that guy's name? Druig.
Yeah, I saw a poster
he's
from the Eternals movie, so I know he's an Eternal. I know
he's
that.
going to be important. We don't know that
Druid.
yet. We don't know.
He's like a druid, but with a G.
With a G. And it's weird. It's a
These
weird
names
name.
are great. Good job, Jack Kirby. Get paid, bud.
And yeah, they're gonna hold this party at the Vorozakin embassy in New York, which I guess they're a big enough country to have a pretty nice embassy. It looked nice. Icarus, meanwhile, who has been bombed, gets taken to Mark Curry's hospital. He's miraculously survived, and Mark Curry goes and talks to him, and he's like, "Yeah, didn't I tell you? I'm like super. You gonna listen to me now?" It's like, maybe I'll listen to you. There's a lot of waffling here. Not Athena. I keep writing Athena all over the place. It's just Athena. Athena and her husband. And this is also confusing. Isn't she an Eternal? Why does she have a husband? Why was she like talking? Does she know who she is? Because like nobody else's memory. I don't know. Memory is like a big deal to this book, and I don't know why she remembers so much and has showed up as her superhero self already in this book. But she works for this. Yeah, Athena's the hardest one to nail down for me. She and her husband have been invited to this Vorozakin party. She works for Tony Stark. She's some scientist. She's been presenting some science weapon that temporarily blinds people for like 15 minutes. That never came back again, really, did it?
No.
No.
There's a lot of stuff happening.
That would be a really good Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, she later has to take down Tony Stark himself. Could have used that. Oh well. Ike Harris, meanwhile, is like still trying to talk to Mark Curry in the hospital. He's like, "Hey, listen, there's these things, the Celestials, and I don't remember them at all. And I know they visited Earth a few times, but I don't really remember anything at all." But then he tells him like a whole fucking giant long story about the Celestials that he somehow remembers, even though he doesn't remember anything about them. And this is kind of where we get the origin of the Celestials a little bit. And they made the Eternals, and they made about 100 of them. And they made the Deviants, and the Deviants were all mean and gross. And he had a friend called Ajax, and Ajax's power was that he could talk to the gods, and because that was his power, the celestial god. Just like Mark Curry's power is speed, and his name is Makari, really. And he says that they made them out of early humans, and then there's millions of deviants now, and they're ruling the world. And then, but then we have our good guys, and Zurus is the leader, and we fought them. And then there's his daughter's Athena, and there's Druig, and you, Makari, and it's a lot of memories all at once. I guess this reminded me a little bit of like the beginning of Squadron Supreme, where we're getting all the recap of the stuff that happened before. But it felt like a little bit too much recap of too many details about everything. But I kind of needed it. In a way, I did lean in a little bit more after that, because I was like, okay, I kind of see who they are. It's not like...
Yeah, I mean, it's still like the idea of the Eternals rather than like who is the characters that I should be caring about and latching onto. And I think that's probably also my problem with the Eternals movie trailers is like, do I care about it? Angelina Jolie, she's Athena, by the way. Or do I care about Salma Hayek? She's Ajax. I was just looking at the cast credit. Like, I don't care about anybody from the trailers. And I still
Ajax is a boy. What?
Mark Curry is also played by a woman too. So man,
what?
The chuds are
my
going to be
God,
all
I'm
over
furious.
this 5-hour YouTube videos of why Eternals is terrible.
I'm furious right now. Oh my! I'm kidding.
But I don't have any characters to like latch onto. But at least like the concept of the Eternals and the Deviants. And I don't know, have we actually explicitly seen the Deviants, or we've just seen them look like mobster dudes drawn by John
We've
Romita
seen
Jr.?
them in the dream, and we've seen them in like this past narration, and they all look different. There's no single like look to them, but they just look like general like monsters made out of clay, like melting clay.
I do think Romita, for as much as I don't like Romita Jr., especially in this era, he just tried to... The Deviants look really good. I like his Deviant. Art. That sounds terrible.
There's plenty
I
to be said about
his Sonic pregnant pictures. I think they're great.
There's plenty of bad to be said about John Romita Jr., but he's fine. He's got his style. If you don't like it, you're not going to like it, but he's fine for this book.
I do think he's really good on all the flashbacks and stuff because like when
Yeah.
he's just drawing like the boxy like classic looking heroes fighting like the deviants, I'm like that all looks good. And it's like mid 2000s digital coloring, so you know, and don't cover your ears, Vince, but it doesn't look great.
I don't think we colored this. I hope we didn't.
I don't think you did, but mid 2000s digital coloring in general just doesn't. I don't know. Like it would look better to me if it had been like, especially because they're trying to do this like Silver Age pastiche thing by being like, oh, in the old days, you know, 2000 years ago, we fought the deviants, blah blah blah. Like the digital coloring kind of mutes it, I think. But otherwise, I think his art's good. But yeah, so that's, and I guess my other complaint about this, and you know, is that this is so soon after the Century, which was, you know, Marvel's big, you know, prestige comic of what 2003 or two, with Paul Jenkins, where it was basically like, what if Superman didn't remember he was Superman? So I'm like, guys, how many times are you gonna do this?
You know, I didn't really get those vibes off of this. At least in a way, I don't know why.
I mean,
I don't know why I didn't. Because I get
John
it now.
Romita Jr. even did the Century, the Age of the Century miniseries. That was all of his like flashback adventures.
I think it felt different enough because at least in this, it's like somebody comes in like, hey, I'm trying to help you remember who you are. Do you remember? This is definitely real. Whereas in Century, it's very much like a little bit more of a mystery in terms of like with this, I'm just screaming the whole time, like, come on, fucking Mark Curry, just like go with the story. We all know what's going to happen here. He spends like 4 issues waffling.
Yeah, it does take way too long. And yeah, like I said, the other problem is there's just too many. And I do think it's a shame because, you know, like we mentioned, there's a very interesting, unexplored, almost completely topic of like, Thena seems to know more than the other characters. She is an Eternal. She has like a young child and a husband. Like, what's going to happen with that? And the book is just like, no time to look at this.
Yeah, that's well, yeah, we'll get into detail more about what happens with her. But as we learn more, like none of the Eternals have their memories except Icarus, who for some reason is trying to wake everybody up. And Athena, who is already awake and just talking to him like it's no big deal. I don't know. We have,
but I think also the difference though with the Century versus this is we actually have like the published comics that exist, which creates a different type of mystery box than like why is the Century never appeared in any published comics, right? But it is very much the same. Like you need to remember, which is always like even like going back to like Hook. I'm like you need to remember you're Peter Pan. Like it doesn't really work on me.
Yeah. Well, and you know, the Century, I think you're right, because the Century, the big mystery of the Century, which we haven't, you know, covered for our show, is like you said, it's like, why don't we remember him? And that's like it's not, are you really the Century? It's like, no, he is. Mm-hmm. We kind of know that.
But are you really the Eternals? That mystery doesn't hang because I fucking bought a book called The Eternals.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, you have the same names. I can Google, you know, even in 2005 or 2006, I can Google these people. I know it's you. Like, Makari, you were in a bunch of Quasar issues I didn't read, but they're in a 50-cent bin at my local comic shop.
But I don't think it's a very good first issue to make me want to buy more, and I'm purely buying it on Neil Gaiman's name, assuming it's going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Is what happened at the time.
So Makari, you know.
Oh, and we didn't even mention. So there's another character, Sprite, who is Raven
I was
Simone,
about to mention him.
But a little preteen boy.
Yeah, it's like a Disney Channel show or whatever. What do they call it? The Tweenie channel or whatever.
Yeah, it's Hannah Montana. 2 years before Hannah Montana, but after.
It's Just So Sprite. That's the name of the
which
show.
is that's a Raven.
Oh, I get you. I get what you're saying now. Yeah, there we go.
And it's a terrible, terrible cheesy comedy, but. So Icarus is lying in the hospital bed and he's, you know, just watching this TV and they've got, it's a reality show, America's Next Superhero, being hosted by the Wasp, and they're shooting superhero PSAs. They're going to go on the set of Just So Sprite and shoot superhero PSAs with him. And I like the Fantastic Four, Mr. Fantastic has like an example. There's silly moments. That's what it is. There's little silly moments in this book that don't feel like Neil Gaiman silly moments, and I really like them. Like these moments like this of just stupid, silly jokes about superheroes. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what other writer does like the corporate cutaways for a page. Like, you know how RoboCop has like its weird cutaways. But there's definitely a comic that like it's probably an Alan Moore book that just like cuts away to like a page of like some like recurring TV show happening. But that definitely feels like that here.
Icarus is like, hey, Makari, that Sprite kid. He's an Eternal too. Cool. Then Makari.
There's only 100 in the world. 2 of them are in this room. 1 of them is on TV right now.
Yep. Then Makari drugs Icarus so some dudes can take him to get some help because they've been listening in and they're like, yeah, this dude's crazy. This is for your own safety. Mark Curry, we got to take this guy to like an institution. And he's like, sure, I'll drug him up. You can take him.
I do appreciate the next issue. Like his bosses are like, what the fuck? Like, did you ask for the credentials? Have you ever done this for a patient before? They were very insistent.
They really were. So we see these dudes who have just kidnapped him. They're on the phone with their dude in the shadow who says, hey, we've retrieved Mr. Harris as you requested. And they're trying to kill him. And they're deviants because one of them is like talking with that deviant font that we know it belongs to deviants. And they're trying to drown him. They're trying everything to kill this guy. Meanwhile, Harris briefly uses his super speed to avoid getting hit by a car, but he barely notices it because he's just so tired. And he's like, was that real? I don't know. He runs into Cersei.
Dumb. I get mad at him. Harris has been on what he says is a 30-hour shift or some ungodly long. I'm sorry, Mark Curry. Hanging with Mr. Cooper, and he's like, I should go get coffee. Like, no, fucker, you should go to bed. Like, don't be going to sleep.
Yeah. Cersei is also tired from planning this giant party, and it's her first big break, and she's trying to make sure it goes well, and she's tired, and she's ordering coffee. And they both ordered the same drink, and their hands rest on each other, and they start talking, and it feels like they've known each other forever. Aww. Some guy from the New York Times is interviewing Sprite, the kid from the TV show. And this kid is like 11 years old, and they ask, hey, where are your parents? And he says, I'm separated from my parents. I got a lawyer, separated, blah, blah, all that legally. The reporter kind of wants to harp on that a little bit, and he's like, no. They make up an excuse, get him out of there. They're not finishing that damn interview. Mark Curry, this is a scene with Mark Curry's boss, and was like, why did you give that patient away to random men who said they were doctors? And while his boss is ranting at him, Icarus is trying to send him telepathic messages like, hey, these guys are trying to kill me. I need your help. Then he has to talk to the cops for a little while, and he's like, yeah, I didn't mention that stuff about how that guy was on my fire escape, and then afterwards, like, yeah, I didn't tell them everything, but also, the weird thing is, all this stuff this guy's been telling me, I've been dreaming about it forever. Like, why'd you give him away? Oh, yeah. Dumbass. Cersei's talking to her friend about the party and how she met Mark, and they're like, hey, you should invite Mark over to the party. Her dad, Zurus, is in the background, rambling on the street about something. It's time for this big party. Cersei has invited Mark, told him to pretend that he's the editor of Foreign Policy Monthly, because, she doesn't want to pretend like she just invited her cute new friend over. I like the scene where the guy from the Vorzaken embassy is like, oh, I always knew that editor of Foreign Policy Monthly was an idiot. I thought that was cute. Thena's husband gets he's like looking for the bathroom, and
he's
the Vorzakens, he's drunk. The Vorzakens have planned that they're going to turn this into a big hostage situation, and they want to kidnap all the scientists, and there's like some more to the plan, but the plan goes wrong because Thena's husband like walks into the wrong room and sees all these dudes with guns just like standing there in their tactical gear, and they panic and shoot him. And they're like, oh, okay, go. Let's start the hostage thing. And then the little baby superheroes from the reality show are there, but they can't help because they'll be sued if they use their powers anywhere other than the show.
I don't think they'll be sued. I think they'll just be kicked off the show, which is stupid.
Maybe that's it. Yeah,
they don't want to get kicked off.
No. And Icarus, he senses that they need help, but he's busy getting melted by lava, and they completely vaporize him, and he turns into a skeleton. He's dead. Straight up dead. Damn, Icarus. Damn. Round up the scientists, kill everyone else, they say. Makari and Cersei start talking telepathically. And they're like, hey, well, are we talking telepathically now? And yet, still, this guy is like, no, I'm not Eternal. Whatever. He's starting to wake up and see like his powers. He's like, everything's slowing down. He can stop bullets with his hand, but he doesn't know what to do because he's like, time has stopped, but it's only for a little while. What do I do? What do I do?
We're like 60 pages into this book. And
So
this
long,
guy,
yeah.
and we knew this. Like, we all
We
knew
knew all
this.
this.
We all knew this. Like, nothing has happened. Nothing has happened.
So,
Well, Athena's husband was shot and killed.
Yeah.
That's something.
that's something. We got a party.
We had a party. I guess she planned her party. I guess Icarus is dead. But again, for some reason, because there's so many point of view characters, and I was given Mark Curry first, I assumed he was my main character.
Nothing happened to Mark Curry, so it does make it feel like nothing has happened. You're right.
Right.
So Mark is in issue 3. Mark is finishing off this scene, but he's talking about it to somebody afterwards. He's talking about how he picked up a metal vase to gather up all the bullets, and he tried to take. We learned that the Eternals are basically like pacifists, kind of all of them. But he was trying to take the guns off of these soldiers, but he did it as carefully as he could without hurting their fingers.
I really liked this, actually.
I like
This
that
was
a
a
lot.
great segment. I like how he articulated it and visually, like the faster stuff is like on the blue light into the spectrum, and the red stuff is where time is starting to slow back and get back to normal. Like it's on the light spectrum. It's a really cool visual, and the way he describes it, I really enjoy that. Like the way it's like those cool Quicksilver scenes in the X-Men movies where you're like, oh, how's he gonna do this? He's like, but that bullet would still be fucking going everywhere. I think that this achieves that really, really well. I think this is a really great sequence, and probably start where this book is starting to like warm up to me.
Yeah. Although I don't like that it's presented in flashback. That is to me just like needless tension killing.
I fucking hate that. Bendis does that shit. He did that shit to end his Miles Morales run, where it's like, oh no, tension, last issue. You know, the second last issue, tension. And then last issue, oh, I was in the hospital, but I survived, and here's how I survived. Well, let me tell you about it. Like, he does that. I think he did that at the end of Siege also. Like, I'm talking about Bendis, not Gaiman, but like, just jumping ahead to the next issue being like, oh yeah, that's already resolved. Like, I hate that. I fucking hate that.
Yeah.
Well, it happened. And he took all their guns, stashed them away somewhere. And when his time stopped, he was like running back to them when his time stop wore off, and he just crashed into them because he couldn't control it. There's one of the superheroes from this TV show named Grace, and I guess her gimmick is that she's like an unfrozen person from the 1800s, and she decides to help. And the other contestant is like, "You're crazy. I'm in it for the fame. I'm gonna stay on the damn show." And then Iron Man shows up. The terrorists have already gotten away with Athena and all the other scientists. And so everyone's like, oh, geez, Cersei's got to go talk to Iron Man. And, you know, when the two of them were done, she just like didn't have any time to talk to Mark and said, have a nice life. And so Mark is now like, oh, dang, what a bummer. I went to this random party that I was invited to, got to use some cool superpowers that I didn't expect to, and I guess that's it for me.
Well, I do think there's like two really cool takeaways from this scene. Like, first of all, like I think it establishes a good mystery box because Iron Man absolutely recognizes Cersei, and he's like, "You need to register," like because this is also the Civil War time, where he's trying to register superheroes for some bullshit reason.
Oh yeah, we didn't mention all the PSAs that they were recording like on this fake reality show or for getting registered as a superhero. Of like, get registered, it's the right thing to do, and it's the law.
It's so stupid, but I do like the mystery box of like, seriously, like I worked with you, like why the fuck don't you remember this? Like, so that like it gives it a good soft reboot to say like this is new and like, but also has like some tie to the past, but also like something weird is happening. And then the second thing is that Mark Curry's like, I use superpowers, I guess I'm gonna have to register, which just tells me that Marvel still had no plan for what the Superhero Registration Act was. It's like, I guess, you know, I can run really fast. I guess I have to become a cop now. Like, that's so fucking, like, it makes me so mad that that's, like, the concept of what that was. Like,
yeah, it was very stupid.
They didn't articulate that law at all very well because they didn't fucking tell their writers what it was. So they all interpreted it in different ways. And this one was a stupid interpretation. So
Yeah. Well, and then we find out who Mark Curry has been telling this story to, where he's revealed that he has superpowers.
He's
that he
talking
spoke
to
to someone
Sprite.
telepathically.
It's Sprite. It's that little kid from the show. And he says, I maxed out my credit cards to come out here to, where is he, like LA or San Francisco? They're in San Francisco. Yep. And he's told him this whole story. And I don't know what tipped him off that Sprite was the person to go talk to. It was
Icarus
telepathic?
told him.
I guess Icarus said that guy's also.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You're right. Yes.
And he's the only one that knows that because he doesn't know Circe is one, and he doesn't know about Athena existing, and he doesn't know about Zathura or whoever his name is.
Zathura.
Thus spoke Zathura.
Zurus. Zeus, I'm assuming, with an extra letter.
Sure. That's the way to do it. It took the letter from Athena that she lost. So Circe, we already got that. We see the deviants now, and they've killed Icarus, and they like shed their human skin, and they're looking all weird and monstery, and they're praying every night for their dark gods to return.
I do like the Guy Fieri, the dude who looks like Guy Fieri.
I did not think he looked like Guy Fieri, but
there's one scene where he has like spiky hair, but later. But I'm gonna call him Guy Fieri and say he goes to Flavor Town. Right. But his whole stomach is also another mouth, and I love that.
Yeah,
I like the design.
He's good. He's good. It takes us a while before we get to see that other stomach for a mouth.
Otherwise, he just looks like a big fat mobster. Slash Guy Fieri sometimes.
I mean, do you think that other mouth is what makes him such a fan of Flavor Town?
Ooh, yeah. Honestly, if I was going to watch a reality show about a guy judging restaurants, I would go with the guy with two mouths. He knows what he's talking about.
Now I just want Guy Fieri to be a lead deviant that's like super charming, and then
with an extra mouth.
Yes, that's what's under the flame shirt. Yes, that's what I want. Yeah. Eternals 2. It's probably in the post-credit scene for Eternals 1.
You'll never know. I have never seen Guy Fieri without a shirt on, so it might be possible. So Abigail, no, sorry, not Abigail. Circe is freaking out, kind of talking to her friend Abigail, like, oh boy, I don't know what I am. Druig, meanwhile, has returned to his like Vorizakan boss named Prickrish, something like that, and he's retelling his story about how his powers started to show up during this attack, and he could see everyone's weaknesses so clearly. This part really reminded me of the Inhumans. They described his power exactly like who's that one guy on the Inhumans who has that power to see Karnak, to see his weaknesses. I was like, yeah, you're the same guy.
But he's more karate, but like his is physical weaknesses. Druig is more psychological.
Yes, it's pretty rough. He like sees some woman who's like standing on guard and gets past her by talking about one of her biggest weaknesses, and then he talks to Prickrish about how his mom, he was dressed in his mom's clothing one day and she caught him, and this is enough to get him to kill himself, I guess. It didn't seem I don't know, didn't seem that bad, but whatever.
Yeah. You know what's a great movie that has this power? Dune, in theaters now. The Voice lets you make people kill themselves.
Well,
this movie Dune is supposed to be off the hook. I have not seen it.
It's good. It's good. I have not seen the Eternals. I can know that neither confirm nor deny whether it's good, but Dune was good.
Yeah,
I have seen neither.
Dune has Aquaman.
It does have Aquaman. He's great in it.
I don't think I've seen a movie in 2 years, to be honest. All right. So Athena's locked up by these people. They're delivering her food. She just wants to get her to her son. Her powers flare up, and she can see like she's a master tactician. She kills the two guards with a fork and the knife. And she calls Tony Stark, who is discovering that Cersei's files have disappeared, but in like the weirdest way. He can see them for a second, and then they vanish off the screen. What is that all
the
about?
Magic's, or whoever the dude in Shadow's Magic's like, oh shit, god damn it.
I didn't get that one. Gotta get it.
Just refreshing the Avengers computer's RAM so that it disappears.
Oh yeah, it just had cached.
Yeah. Oh man.
That is fucking weird now that you say it. Yeah. This is how computers work. Neil and Romita are like, yeah, that's how it works, I think.
Yeah, there's a picture of her, there's a file, and then it's just blank.
And Tony Stark doesn't have time to like figure this out because he gets the call from Thena, and he's like, "Oh, okay, I gotta go save her." And it's clear there seems to be some history there, like maybe
She's his top scientist.
Yeah. The first issue established that like she hasn't been working there that long, but she's very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, she created a weapon of mass destruction that can blind an entire town. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very lucrative for a arms manufacturer in 2006.
Yeah, she's the one that made the Havana Syndrome weapons, but for real, the ones that actually exist in the Marvel universe.
We jump over now to he saves her, and they're like, "Hey, have you checked on my son, Iron Man?" And he's like, "Oh, I probably should have done that, shouldn't I? Yeah, take me home, please."
Dina, I said I was sorry is a real word that comes in his robot voice.
Yeah.
We go to Antarctica now, where we have this. It's like a big Eternals structure or a celestial structure, whatever. And there's these molds, and we see Icarus getting remade out of some mold. What? Oh no! I started to lean in a little bit there because I'm like, okay, we got like remake these people. I guess that's kind of cool. But let's jump to chapter 4 now. Next issue. We haven't been reading the titles of any of these. They're kind of dumb titles. It's not important.
Yeah, still
Genesis to
4 of
Revelations
6 at this point.
Yeah, it goes to 5 of 6 before Neil's like, I gotta need
it. And 6 is double sized too.
Yeah. Oh, jeez, there's so much to read. So Icarus gets reborn. He's like, hey, this thing was pretty big and cool. And he's like flying away. Sprite has promised Mark Curry some answers. They're going to the park. Druig is back at Vorozeka in the country. He's just landed there, and they're calling him the former deputy prime minister, and he's under arrest for treason. But he turns some guards to his side behind a closed door because I guess Neil Gaiman didn't want to write another way that he did that. And he's going to take over the country. And he's just basically in charge of Vorozeka now. Now Mark and Sprite are having a nice little picnic. Sprite says, don't worry about Cersei. She's always breaking your heart. I remember like 100 years ago she did this, and like a few thousand years ago she did this. Cersei, meanwhile, sitting on a roof thinking...
What is it, by the way, about like fucking 11-year-olds? Is this in the scene where he's like, I wish I could have dated her? Is that a later scene or not?
I think it's later, but yeah, it's... I don't know.
Like,
well,
maybe
that's
it's like,
part of... I'll say that ends up being part of Sprite's overall motivation, and that he's not really 11 years old. You know, he is millions of years old and just is tired of being stuck in an 11-year-old's body. I get that.
I don't. Being 11 was great. It was fun. I played video games all the time. There were no expectations of me. It was a great ass time. Like I don't know, and him and like I think like Pinocchio in Fables are like, oh, I'm in a child's body, nobody wants to fuck me, and I'm like, I don't like this conversation. Why are we having this? Like, if you're biologically 11, you probably don't want to be fucked by anybody. You're probably fine. So don't.
Okay, hold on. Are you questioning the biology of the Eternals right now?
Yes, I am. The 11-year-old child. I'm just like, why? I don't care. Like,
I can't even think of him as 11. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't register.
He's just a tiny million-year-old person.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know.
But his whole motivation is like, I want to be treated like an adult. Like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You're fine.
So he is also making it clear that he's not an Eternal. He says, no, not an Eternal. Well, okay, we'll get to more of that. Cersei, I didn't finish this. She is like sitting on a roof thinking, I can't just turn my cat into like a dragon by waving my fingers. Oh my God. Oh shit. I just did. That's kind of nuts. Here's the
scene where I think they're talking.
Here's the scene. Yeah. And then Sprite says, hey, Mark, go touch that black rock. And they get sent down to below to like some Eternal machinery. And it's like a big old celestial, and Mark is hardwired to be like unable to hit it because he's an Eternal and he can't attack a celestial. Icarus is still kind of being rebooted up in the camp. So yeah, this is where Sprite really explains all of his stuff, and he's like, why? I don't even know why the Celestials did this to me. Why am I the only one that had to stay as a kid and couldn't like age and grow up to be adult size?
Right. So this is, I guess, I mean, so he tricks Mark Curry, or should we start calling him Macari? I don't know.
I go back and forth, yeah.
Tricks him into ramming his head and knocking himself out to like start triggering this thing to happen. And then he starts like evil villain monologuing, and it's like,
yeah,
why is any of this happening? Like, why?
So I thought at this point I was like, oh, so he's the big bad. It's his fault that everybody lost their memories. And I really got lost during this explanation, but that's the conclusion I came to, that in his pursuit to become not immortal anymore and just become like a regular human, he caused all the other immortals or Eternals to lose their memories.
Right. That everybody forgot about them and that they lost their memory and that he wouldn't be an Eternal anymore is, I guess, what he like unimind his way, like wished his way, Wonder Woman 1984 style, to happen. But it's like, so why are you here if you already did this? Why are you back with the Celestial? Why do you need to awaken the
Celestial? Why do you need
why did you talk to this other Eternal? You could have just been like, no, I'm very busy. I'm a celebrity boy and also not an Eternal. Don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But instead, he like
his role,
causes this chain of events that I'm like, why did you do this? Why did any of this happen?
Yeah, his role in all of this is very like, it seems like he's got a part to play that didn't all come together perfectly. Well, anyway, let's just keep moving.
It's very strange because it's just like, I don't think there was editorial meddling. He got an extra issue. I was like, why is this happening? I literally don't understand why. I mean, I don't want to like, fixate on plot holes, but I'm like, why did this New York doctor leave his setting and all the other characters he knew to go hang out with the villain? And then why did the villain, like, it makes sense if it's a story where the villain is trying to get something from him, but he's really not. He's just trying to like trigger this thing.
So who's trying to trigger the Celestial to wake up? Are the Deviants?
Well, see, that's the Deviant thought.
Yeah, that's what I thought the Deviants do in the next issue.
So in the next issue, though, like, Sprite is like a clear-cut not a bad guy. He's just like back to being a regular character who doesn't have any control over anything.
So I can understand like a dum-dum being he tricked Macari into
listener, if you can explain this to us.
It's like, people talk about Indiana Jones and how like if Indiana Jones had just said no, the Ark of the Covenant would never, be in German hands because they would have just dug in the wrong place for 5 years. But it's just like, if you just didn't talk to Mark Curry, none of this happens, Sprite. This is all your fault.
Yeah, that's. I think I got caught up in the momentum that like he definitely sets off the chain of events for the Deviants, but there's not like an extra plot hook for it to say like the Deviants, like it was a deal that he needed Mark Curry to wake up the Celestial, or for the purposes of the plot, and the Deviants want the Celestial to be woken up, but there's no like plot hook to say like why Sprite did it. Other than like if this was part of the deal for him to no longer be an Eternal and he could be amoral, then maybe that would be, and that was part of the deal, or if they had someone over a barrel, because he's just like a dum-dum that just happens to set these chains in motion because he's not thinking ahead. But he's not even like told like you need to do this and he's not thinking about the consequences. He just does it for some reason.
Right. And it's just like, if you just don't do it, if you just say like, no, go to hell, Macari, then like the whole second half of this doesn't happen.
Right. But then there's no reason for him to ask for anybody for that to open that up because he doesn't need to.
Right, because he's the one that caused this the memory stuff to happen. So again, like, don't even talk to these. Like, you're done with these folks. Like, that wasn't that the whole point?
I wonder if so in the next issue
we need another issue. Although Chris, I want to harp on this for a sec. We also learned that Sprite was Peter Pan, the inspiration for Peter Pan.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
That was I remember first reading this in 2006. I was just like, come on.
I think it's cool, except for when you remember that Neil Gaiman does this for like
That's a Neil Gaiman trope for sure. Yes.
that's an
Yeah,
Alan
he
Moore
does it
trope
in like
too.
every single story. I'm just like, stop doing it.
I'm gonna write a thing like 40 years from now that something was like the inspiration for the Sandman, and Neil Gaiman's not gonna be able to do shit about it.
What are you,
real
Jack
quick.
Kirby?
So real quick, end of this issue, reborn Icarus comes to Athena, who's just like hanging out with her kid, and says, "Hey, we got to go save the world because they're waking up that sleeping celestial." The deviants get word. Next issue, chapter 5. The deviants
Chapter
get
5 of
word
6.
from a friend. Yes, the deviants get word from a friend in Antarctica that Icarus is reborn, and they're like, "Okay, cool. We'll move in on the kid now." I don't know what those are combined with each other. I thought they were all down under this park, but whatever. They go grab the kid, Sprite, and we finally see this belly fur mouth that we'd never seen until this point. Yeah, they catch Sprite. They've got them all trapped, and they go down. So because Mark activated that black rock, I guess anyone can activate it for a few hours now. I guess that's how it works. And the deviants can take everyone down again to the sleeping celestial.
They could have at least demolition manned it.
Something, yeah. Ajax, meanwhile, goes up to wake up Zurus, who is a drunk. He's got a dog, and he doesn't want to do anything. But he's like, all right, Zurus, I got to fill you in on everything. Remember how it was your suggestion to hire the deviants to kill Icarus? Okay, let's stop here for a second. Because I think when y'all were talking about, like, was there a deal between the deviants and Sprite? And then there's this, that there was a deal between the deviants and Ajax. I feel like that was like a disconnect in Neil Gaiman's outline. Like he messed up somewhere. And it's like, oh, well, it's too late. I need an extra issue to fix this. This is my guess.
I do think there were delays in this. I don't remember how long they were, but I do feel like there was a pretty big delay in at least one of these before. So maybe you're right. He could have just screwed that up, which is pretty crazy if it's true.
Yeah. So Icarus died while Makari, Cersei, Druig, and Thena were all in physical proximity at the same party, and they formed the beginnings of a unimind. But they won't be fully reactivated until they've died and gone through a full rebuilding. Okay.
Just think about how stupid that sentence is.
Zurus is like, I don't want to leave, but eventually he gets up and becomes the leader again. Yeah, they're down there with the sleeping celestial. They retell how they are just like, oh, we prefer to be called the changing people, the changed people, whatever. And they were just food for the gods, and it's no good. And I think they killed Makari. I wrote down here, I think they killed Makari, but I guess not. His face turned into a skeleton or something for a little while, but he's not dead, is he?
No.
I don't think so.
No, because he definitely comes back. He's definitely in the last 2 issues.
Yeah. He's like bonding or whatever with the Dreaming Celestial.
I thought we were going to see more people die and get rebuilt through these molds, and it only happened once, and I was just why would you set that up without paying it off more? Athena and Icarus go to get Cersei, and she says no. Athena's kid Joey is there too. He's just part of the superhero adventure now. And they even saw like, oh, his dad got Killed. And I'm like, this kid looks like he can spell.
It's like 6 years old. What are you doing?
It's also Icarus, been days.
Yeah, if you not told your kid what happened.
Yeah. Does I know your parents are space god immortal weirdos, but he didn't have parents? Maybe he should be staying with them while you were kidnapped for 2 days?
I'm like, so now that we know that the Eternals are also like rebuilt from machines, how she was able to have a kid?
They raise the question.
They raise the question, and they didn't.
They don't resolve it though. I mean, they leave that one open.
I mean, they kind of did resolve it because she's got a kid, but like, I want details, you know.
Does the kid have powers? I guess not.
I don't know. Not yet.
Is he real? Who knows?
So Icarus makes Abigail forget all about Cersei when Abigail shows up home, and she's like, "What?" So Cersei joins just so she can make her friend unforget her. Ajax and Zurus show up to get Cersei right afterwards, but they're late, and they're like, "All right, let's go get Druig instead." The Deviants, aka the Changing People, have now opened up the land to their god, the Sleeping Celestial, and they're like doing the rituals and everything. And at dawn, he will wake up. He's been dug up, but he's still sleeping because it's nighttime. That's when the gods sleep. Chapter 6. Everyone in the world, I wrote down everyone in the world is talking in their sleep, but that apparently is not the case. It's just some people are talking in their sleep because they're on the wavelength of the celestial god, and it's like he's monologuing through everybody. Icarus, Circe, Athena, and the son Joey they all show up to the sleeping celestial. Mark is there on the ground. He's
Was Mark Curry even
recovering.
in the last issue?
I think he was knocked out the entire issue.
He was knocked out the whole time. Yeah. The Deviants are there, and they're ready to fight for a while. And all the Deviants are hanging out. And one guy, I like the one guy who's real excited. Okay, one of them's real excited that all their hard work is paid off. And this other guy said, "Don't eat your human before he's trapped." I really like that turn of phrase, and I might use that. Also, that guy had a pretty nice character design. He didn't look like the other Deviants. One of the Deviants, the two-mouth guy, Guy Fieri, says he's going to eat Joey. And Circe, meanwhile, is more worried about Mark, not about this child's about to get eaten. Turns that bad guy into a tree real quick, though. And Joey is just, like, hanging off this tree's branch, I think, until the end of the series. I don't think we see him again.
No, he does. He gets because the tree gets turned back into a humanoid form, I think, at one point.
Yeah, at the end.
Okay. Yeah. The Celestial is starting to wake up. And oh my god, it's so monstrous. Even the Watcher has to look away. Even Galactus is afraid. I'm glad we got these.
This is such a Neil Gaiman. We just talked about this with Swamp Thing, and we were like, man, Neil Gaiman uses this all the time. He borrowed this straight from Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. It's like, something in the world is happening, and in another part of the world, something else is happening, and then a villain who is usually stoic has an emotion. Like, I think it was the Joker.
The Joker
laughing.
Stopped laughing.
Galactus knew what it was to be afraid. But it also feels very lived in. Like Galactus knows that like sleeping Celestials waking is not good for business. He knows it.
Yep, not good. The Avengers have been tracking some seismic disturbances. They show up. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
But Galactus eats planets. Wouldn't he like be on the same level as Celestials?
Yeah, like you're.
No, these people work. No, because the two creators never talk to each other. About the Galactus' creator and the Celestials' creator never talk to each other, so that's why there's no overlap.
Yep.
I have a few problems with this theory. And just very briefly, I don't want to get into the whole thing, but one of the reasons that Jack Kirby left DC or left Marvel to go to DC and to do the New Gods is he pitched a story like, what if Galactus ate Asgard, and that the gods had to basically start over and become new gods without any of the fancy Rainbow Bridge stuff.
That sounds cool.
And so he pitched this, and this was in like 1969, 1970, and so Stan Lee was in full like, don't change anything, we're selling this for TV shows mode. So he's just like, no, don't kill like a bunch of side characters, don't kill Odin. We still can merchandise this into a film franchise in 40 years. So he couldn't do it, and so that was kind of when he went to DC. He did the New Gods. And then when he went back to Marvel, he did the Eternals, kind of still on the same wavelength.
Mm-hmm.
So he did want to connect Galactus to these guys. He just never could.
Interesting. I love it. Thank you for the history lesson. That's why we got you, Chris. I actually am really excited. I was like, that's why I didn't bug you like all week, being like, what's up with this? Because I figured you would tell me.
So we get the Avengers. They show up, and Athena is like, no, y'all can't get involved. You're just gonna wake him up if you try to fight it. And she takes down Iron Man, like busts his suit up for something. And Hank Pym, I like Hank Pym in this book because he's written like kind of an idiot, and I think it's pretty fun. Somebody like, which one was it? It's Icarus. I think it's like, hey, just stand over there and be real big and block the sun so that he'll wake up slower, please. And he's like, oh, okay, cool, I'll do that.
But I also like, he's like, you're mind controlling me, aren't you? And he goes, yes, I am. And he goes, got it. All right, cool. But he still can't help but be mind controlled. But he's still like, you're doing this to me, aren't you? Yeah, I am. I like that. It's very cute. Dang.
Yeah, later he tells Iron Man, like, hey, they got mind control powers too. And he's like, I saw. He's blocking up the sun, which doesn't actually seem to do anything, but they're just kind of getting him out of the way. Cersei is really getting tired of all this, and she just wants out. She just wants to wake up Mark. She's not remembering everything as well as everyone else is. Hank shouts, hey, something's happening. And the Celestial wakes up, and it is huge. It's like way bigger than Hank.
It's like half a mile tall, I think is what they said.
Yeah, it's gigantic. And Mark Curry has... Oh, wait, no, hold on. So they decide, okay, we got to slow this thing. Akaris... Hold on. There's so many damn people in this, and I don't remember who's doing what. And I got to... Okay. Akaris goes to talk to it because... sometimes I said Akaris, and sometimes I said Icarus. I don't know which it is.
I've been going by their Roman names. He's Mercury, not Makari.
Okay. So he gets goes to talk to the sleeping Celestial, even though he doesn't have that power. And like, there's only one of them who could talk to a Celestial. I don't know. But
there's a guy whose whole job is talking to Celestials.
Yeah. He gets he gets stopped by Zurus, Druig, and Ajak, who they just showed up. And the father and daughter, Zurus and Thena, are reunited. The five of them, Zurus, Druig, Ajak, Icarus, and Thena, do a Unimind, but it fails. Okay, great. Now, meanwhile, Mark Curry has this big, long dream conversation with the sleeping Celestial while he's passed out. And the Celestial is telling Mark, like, hey, yeah, I made you personally because, I wanted to make somebody with super speed. I wanted to see what it was like. And he's like, Makars, you're basically going to be a prophet saying, I've been digesting everything on planet Earth, and I'll be judging everybody soon. So just go let them know. We didn't really talk about the sleeping Celestial, but there was a little bit in there from Sprite's explanation that, like, he's the one who made the deviants, and the other Celestials punished him, and that's why. I don't know why he's evil necessarily, or like why he's going to destroy everything when he wakes up, but he is. It's basically he wakes up and the Avengers are like, this thing's not a god. He's like, nah, this thing is basically God. Don't mess with it. Just leave it there. And
don't touch it.
Zurus introduces the Eternals to Iron Man, and Iron Man's like, cool, get yourselves registered. And they're like, no, we're not. We're not part of your shit, so no.
Iron Man comes off real bad in this story. He's either like, I want to punch it, or I want you to be registered. Like, these are your two options, like, for the whole thing.
That's all he cares about. That's all he cares about.
According to Marvel Wikia, I don't know how accurate it is. It says that the Dreaming Celestial is also called Tiamat, which is like, wow, they really just dug into their mythology, and they're just like, look, we got to use the whole.
Is there a name we haven't used? Use that one.
Yeah, it's just like, what's the name for the monster, the Gilgamesh, or I think is it Gilgamesh? It's a Near Eastern religion. Tiamat's like the first, basically like a Uranus in Greek mythology that gets like tore open.
Pretty sure it's one of the monsters you can summon in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it is.
That sounds right.
That's all I know.
That's how those games are satanic and trick you into knowing the names.
Oh no!
My God, that's what those games corrupted me.
Yep,
that's what did it.
Yeah. Okay, so issue 7 now feels like a whole different world. Issue 7 of 6. This gold celestial is just standing there in San Francisco and has become like a tourist destination.
I think it's still there in the Marvel universe. They never got rid of it.
Oh, geez.
Maybe Secret Wars got rid of it, but that's the only thing I can think of.
I don't know. The Eternals have all moved into their ancient home. Is this in Antarctica? Is that where that? It was built for 100, but it's just a few of them, so it's kind of big.
So they live on their cold base in Antarctica, whereas the Inhumans live on their cold base on the moon. Is that
Sure? Yeah. Are they still on the moon?
They used to be in the Himalayas before that. So
yeah. They got to move to different places. So they're having a little bit of an argument because Zurus promised Druig that he wouldn't interfere in his whole like taking over a country business, but Ajax doesn't really agree. The Deviants then show up to fight. It's a big old army of Deviants. This has like nothing to do with anything. They're just like, hey, we're here to fight.
It seems like Arc 2.
It really, yeah. Oh boy. So what's the guy? There's one of these main guys, Craw is his name. He's like, fight me and my army. And Zurus is like, no, I don't really want to. That's not our thing. Go away. But he is like, I really want to fight. What about this? I'll make you a deal. Makari says, I'll handle this. And Zurus has to go deal with some other stuff. Cersei has a meeting with Tony Stark, who wants her to come back to the Avengers. And she's like, no. And why did I even have this meeting anyways? I'm done, and that's the end of Cersei. After Zurus leaves, Druig starts a big old fight with everybody, and Makari's like, "That's not how I was going to deal with it. Now we got to fight." But Craw holds back. He's like, "I want to see how this Makari deals with it." And there was earlier when Makari doesn't kill those two Eternals, the Guy Fieri one with the extra mouth, and whoever the other one was. The two Deviants. And they're always like, "Oh, this guy's Skadrak," and they keep using that word on him. Like, "Hey, wait a minute, I think this guy might be Skadrak." And then he's like nice to them, and he's like, "Hey, shit, man, I think you're right. He is Skadrak." And I don't know what it means. We don't find out.
I like how I read it as like Skadrak was like the name of reincarnated thing, but the way you're reading the line means it's like their slang word for cool. Not a cop. Like,
something like
he's
that.
not a cop. He's Skadrak.
It could be anything. Yeah.
No, yeah, I think it's that he's like that they know he's connected to the Celestial somehow, so they're like, oh, he's a good guy, even though we hate most of the Eternals.
Yeah,
this one's like Celestial says he's okay.
I do like that this issue and like the later issues like kind of humanize the Deviants, that they're like not necessarily bad. They're just put in a bad situation.
Like
yeah, I'm fine with this. I like this development.
I did like there's a scene where Crad or whatever his name was like making a big boastful challenge, and then another deviant under him was like, yeah.
He's a good hype man.
So Craw gets like a one-on-one shot with Makari, and Makari says, listen, I'll let you strike at me 3 times, and then I get 1 strike at you. And he's like, all right. And he strikes at him 3 times, but the super speed doesn't work. And then it's time for Makari's one shot. And Makari just like gets down. I feel like
I must have misinterpreted the rules. When he said that I could strike you 3 times, I thought that like he would actually get to hit him.
Like, I'll stand still. Yeah, I'll stand still and you hit me 3 times.
Like, I'll let you try to hit me 3 times. This is a different story than I'll let you hit me 3.
Yeah.
It felt like it felt like the Green Knight, by the way. If y'all have seen that movie or actually know the fairy tale or story, because I didn't know it until I saw the movie this year. But it's a cool movie. It's interesting. Chris, did you see it?
I did see it, and I did know the story already.
I did not. I knew not a goddamn thing about that. But this felt very similar.
I've never even heard of it.
It's basically a guy comes into King Arthur's court on Christmas Day and is like, whoever wants to take a shot at me, I'm going to give you double. Is it double or triple?
I think it's just the same. I'll hit you the same way that you hit me a year from now.
Right. And so Gawain cuts the guy's head off, and he picks his head up and is like, see you in a year.
And then that's movie. And that's what the movie kicks off from. It's pretty cool.
All right. So Makari is now giving Craw his one shot, and he sticks his neck out, and I was like, go ahead, behead me. And Craw is like, wow, this guy's fucking Skadrak. And he's like, all right, cool. And they're done. Meanwhile, while they were doing this, Zurus goes to see Sprite on a train to L.A., and he cracks his neck and just like leaves him on the
It's
train.
like, you
all right.
fucked up, man. You fucked up. And it's such like a spy movie, except like, and I know y'all don't interpret him as an 11-year-old, but it's still leaving like the body of a dead 11-year-old kid on a train.
Yeah, he doesn't interpret him that way.
But and I guess they're gods, so they don't care. But there's gonna be like 3 or 4 stops down. Somebody's gonna poke him and see if there's a dead child on this train, and it's gonna be a bad day for a lot of people.
That is gonna be a bad day.
And it's gonna be like if Raven Simone or Miley Cyrus was found dead on a train.
Yeah, it'd be bad.
Yeah, that would be very bad.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
They're the good guys.
Put those keywords for search engine optimization in case people are looking for. All right, so Zurus comes back. He gives Makari and Akaris a mission to go find all the other Eternals and wake them up. And so I guess that's like the premise from the pilot here. Yeah, they don't even talk about the big gold celestial. I don't know why he needed another issue here. This is the beginning of a new arc.
Yeah, this is like the cool down, like setting stuff up for a series he's not writing. That comes out in like 2 years that I didn't.
The
read.
last like 9 issues and then it's canceled.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be cool. I guess I'm not super. It's like, all right,
the
there's
concept
90
of
more.
Eternals.
Sure, I guess.
I think that
I
like
don't know.
though there's just I think like this whole arc is just like I think it has no character it focuses on. Like Mark Curry is like your ostensibly your point of view character. But he doesn't do shit for the first 2 issues, and then he's off the table for 2 issues in the middle, like near the end, and then Zurus shows up. Like I mean, he's in the background of a few, like as like a crazy homeless guy. But then suddenly he's like a major character for the last 2 issues, and I'm like,
Yeah.
And he remembers everything, and he's all powerful. And
it is such a like cop out like Thor ending of it, where it's like, oh, Odin's back from his sleep and he saved the day. You're like, where the hell have you been, Odin?
yeah, and Odin's in charge now and making all the decisions for the final act. Like,
where it's just
I
like,
don't
to me, that's such a classic bad Thor, plot device of like Odin just swoops in and saves the day, literal Deus Ex Machina. But yeah, none of this worked for me. I did not like this at all. It's so decompressed. I think you're right, and it's a shame because I do think there's interesting stuff that could be explored with like Athena's character. And the book is just like not interested in her at all.
Yeah. There's a lot of missed opportunities here, and it doesn't feel like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like a miniseries. It does feel like it was meant to be the beginning of more. But I don't know. Just whatever.
Yeah.
I'm probably never gonna read any Eternals again. But who knows?
It just took so long to get to that point, and you're like. So like
yeah, and I honestly like I read this in 2006, and I probably read this again in 2010ish, and I'm like, once I knew more like Neil Gaiman's thing, I was like, maybe this was not the best introduction.
You've read this 3 times?
I honestly remember none of it, if we're being totally honest. But you ever now and then read these things and you're like, maybe I just didn't give it a fair shake, or maybe I didn't understand it, or maybe it wasn't the right mindset. And I went in like thinking like. Maybe I was just being unfair. Maybe I was just being too hard on John Romita Jr. I think his art is pretty good, actually, for this one. I didn't think it at the time. So I was like, maybe I'm just being hard on it. And, like, this book just doesn't amount to anything, and I don't care about anyone in it. And it's just, like, that's it. Like, I was right in 2006.
Wow. Vince 2006 redeemed.
Yeah, one of the few things he was right about. Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've talked about it a little bit. I mean, I don't know. I've never, I'm not an Eternals fan. I think it's, all the like Kirby designs and stuff is not his best work. And it's just, like it gets so into the like Chariots of the Gods, like mumbo jumbo. And I do think you need something to like hook into, a reader, and again, he's done it before with American Gods. He kind of did it with the Sandman, where the Sandman's like, "Oh, I've been gone for like 70 years. Tell me my whole story again." But here it's just like he kind of does it with Mark Curry and then just bails on it, and it was very frustrating. Like none of these characters are really, I'm not excited to read about any of them. Cersei's the one that in the past I liked her on the Avengers because she's kind of like, she was constantly like flirting with the Dane Whitten, the Black Knight, a really lame Avenger who's apparently in the Eternals.
I think he's played by Jon Snow from from Game of Thrones. Kit
Which
Harington.
that's I guess that's fine casting. He is English, right? But he's a lame character. But yeah, Cersei was constantly flirting with him in early Avengers when they were wearing those leather bomber jackets. And yeah, so I knew that character. I was like, oh, I know Cersei. And then her character here is just nothing. Like she basically falls in love with Makari and spends the rest of the book being like, oh, where's Makari?
Yeah, nobody had any real characterization. Other than Druig. Druig seemed like a real character.
He did seem like the best one, which, like, I don't think it's
Loki.
the most original thing. Yeah, but
yeah, he was very, yeah.
He's Loki crossed with Doctor
I kind of
Doom,
thought
and I
that
like
Sprite,
it.
Sprite was a little bit more Loki to me.
Yeah, Sprite kind of visually it looks more like Loki. But yeah, he did have that sort of Doctor Doom energy. And he did seem like a more interesting character than the rest of them, which just seemed kind of like generic guys. Yeah. I do think it's funny because I thought the end of the original Jack Kirby series was killing off the Odin character, but they're like, no, he's okay. Everybody is eternal. Everything's back forever. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of it's frustrating, and I don't think it particularly works. I know Avengers 2018.
Jason Aaron's Avengers.
Yeah, there's been so many Avengers relaunches, but I know the Celestials and the Eternals show up in somebody's Avengers. But I just I don't know. I don't think they work. I'm not. There's too many of these guys already that are like this and better.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very much. It's so similar to the Inhumans that hey, some ancient people that you don't know came and left us here a long time ago, and now there's some of us. And you don't know which ones, and we're just here. We don't know what we're doing here.
Right. We've got an evil brother that's always scheming.
We've always got an evil brother. But yeah, I think it's time we jump over to Scrooge Mcduck here. Good job, Eternals. I hope your movie does well. Scrooge McDuck. Okay, so last time we joked about that Scrooge story that it was Sandman adjacent. I think this one is maybe more Sandman adjacent. This issue is called The Dreamtime Duck of the Never Never. Neil Gaiman, I think, might have written this one. We start with Fergus, who's Scrooge's dad, and Jake, and they're looking over at some pics of Scrooge that he sent over, and he's still sending money home to Scotland. But where is he now? He's in Australia. He heard there's some gold down there, so he's heading out. He saves an Aborigine traveler from a highway robbery, and this guy ends up becoming his friend. He's doing some kind of earth ritual with crystals and energy and all this sort of stuff. And he says, hey, okay, you play this didgeridoo while I do the rest of the ceremony here. And Scrooge says, oh, geez, look at me. I'm John Philip Sousa now. And the guy is like, oh, nice to meet you. I'm Jabiru Kaparigi. Nice to meet you, John Flip Sousa. Zuza. I like that joke a lot. And he calls him John Flip for the whole rest of the book. A little crevice opens in the sand, though, and they go down. They use some of Scrooge's rope to make sure that they can get back up. And there's handprints all over the wall, from the past, from everyone who's visited there. And it's hieroglyphics and stuff all over the place. And he's reading it. The Jabiru guy is reading it while Scrooge goes looking for gold. And he finds this big opal, which is an ancient relic of this place that is supposed to stay there. But he's like, oh, my God, this could be worth a lot of money. And while they're talking about it, this robber comes back. And he just lifts the rope right up out of there with a lasso. And he takes their camel. And he dumps their rope. And he just leaves them stranded.
And he steals the opal.
Oh my God, this asshole. Jabiru is at first, like, gives him the benefit of the doubt. He's like, hey, look, he says we're out of rope. He's gonna help us get some more rope. It's like, no, that guy's not coming back. So Scrooge uses a didgeridoo to call for an emu, and he lassos that emu and climbs up, and then he goes to catch that evil robber, and he goes chases after him. Does catch up to the guy right after he's going through all of Scrooge's stuff. He throws away Scrooge's first dime. Oh, you recognize it because he's got it on a string. And Scrooge catches up to him and like ties him up, and he's gonna take him to the cops. But there's a flood that shows up, and Scrooge has nowhere to hide, so he runs back into that hole and goes down there again. And he decides to leave the opal there. And he's like, oh, it's important. I don't like people who steal and get rich that way. So he's got a conscience to him, Okay, that's all right. He meets up with Jabiru again, who's been reading the story on this dream wall, and he's like, yeah, I know you left it there because I can see it on this wall. And he says, oh, now I get it. You're the great platypus in this story, and that was your destiny, and you're definitely going to find your dime again. You should look in that crow's nest. And he's like, oh, yeah, it's there. Weird.
I do like this crow, by the way, in the background of the art. He's stealing shit the whole, like, in the background of the whole page.
There are other like animal throwaway background gags. There was like two snakes fighting with each other.
Yeah, I saw
there was
those
like
guys.
a marmot that was scared of a scorpion.
Yeah.
There was fun stuff here. But what was also, he's like, oh, okay, what's next for you, Scrooge? And he kind of looks through a diamond at this dream wall, and he sees a vision of the Rocky Mountains. He's, oh, I should go to the Rocky Mountains.
What he sees the aurora borealis.
Oh, yes.
This time of day. Localized entirely within this cavern.
And so the Jabiru guy is like, oh wow, what a nice guy. But what are these other things I see on this wall that I can't quite make out? And it's Huey, Dewey, and Louie and Donald Duck there. That was great. That was not much that really happened in this issue, but I really liked that moment there. I have nothing else to say about it.
No, I thought this book was going to be... this book is like done in ones of like early Scrooge adventures. For some reason, I thought this was going to be like mostly his life with the ducks, with the nephews, like through time, but it is not. I don't think it's ever going to turn out that way. Now that I'm thinking, I don't know how much Huey, Dewey, and Louie are going to figure into this book at all.
At all.
No, I thought it was going to... I thought it was going to be like... like 2 or 3 adventures of him young, and then like the bulk of the adventures would be like, here's like a best of the stories of Duckburg and him with the nephews is what I thought this book was going to be. It's not that way. So it ends up just being like one-off adventures that are kind of all building together because like, I don't know if this guy's going to come back as like another villain of his, but definitely like, that's the way the first 6 issues, like now we've met all of our villains. So.
And Don Rosa, talks about in his like last page, he's pulling all of this from like Carl Barks, DuckTales, Uncle Scrooge comics from like the 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. So it's more stuff. He does mention he had to like compress time and move things around a little bit because I guess Scrooge does go back to the Americas at some point, and he's like, yeah, that's kind of like the adventure we already had. So I was like, we're just gonna spend more time in Australia here. And that he really wanted to focus on the archaeology aspect of Scrooge's character, since that's such an important part of DuckTales and the Scrooge character, is that he cares a lot about archaeology in a positive way, and so he wanted this to be like the motivating thing that makes Scrooge that kind of guy.
Interesting.
That's really cool.
Interesting. I like it. I like the Scrooge archaeology. I always remember him climbing up that rope to get to that's not really archaeology, is
it? Sure it is.
It's that video game. Look, climbing that rope.
He might solve a mystery or rewrite history. So that's...
So yeah, next time we're on Scrooge number 8. I didn't even see a preview of what's coming up on there. It'll be a total surprise. We got a Hawkeye show that's starting soon. So we're gonna read some Hawkeye. We're reading the Matt Fraction run, which is pretty much I think everyone agrees is the best Hawkeye run out there. Yeah?
Yeah.
Is that pretty fair to say? Yeah.
What? Even better than solo Avengers from the late 80s?
No, we're not. No, it's not. But this is, we're reading the first volume, My Life as a Weapon. It's got art by David Aja. It's got the first 5 issues of this Hawkeye run from 2010?
I think 2012 or 13.
All right. It also includes an issue of Young Avengers Presents, which was also written by Matt Fraction with art by Alan Davis. And I guess that includes some Kate Bishop stuff in there.
Yeah, Young Avengers Presents was they weren't doing anything with Young Avengers at the time. I think they were waiting for their main writer to come back to it. I can't remember his name off the top of my head now.
Scott.
No, it was he was an OC writer, Alan Heinberg. So what they
This is the last name I said.
Oh, I thought you said Scott. I was like, that's not Scott's name.
I did get the first name wrong.
Okay. Sorry. But anyways, yeah, so they came out with 6 one-shots about each character, so Patriot, Stature, and one was about Kate Bishop, who ends up becoming she's part of the Hawkeye TV show, and it's written by Matt Fraction, and it's in the trade, so I figured we should check it out too. Even though it came out
this
5 years earlier.
This is the book. Yeah, this is the book that really made her a little bit more key part of Hawkeye as the character.
She's the only thing that survived Young Avengers. At least in the MCU. She's the only thing that's been bounced up, like Patriot and Asgardian or Hulkling and Wiccan. I think. We'll get to Young Avengers someday. This has been a very long episode. It's probably our longest episode ever. Thank you, Neil Gaiman.
Oh my God. Longest episode. Thank you, Neil Gaiman. Damn it. Neil Gaiman.
But yeah, check out Hawkeye, My Life as a Weapon. Hawkeye TV show starts the day before Thanksgiving. So probably the day that this next episode comes out. So.
All right. Mm-hmm. Well, that's it. I got nothing else to say. We've been talking for a long time. What do y'all want to plug?
I've got I was on an episode of Games My Mom Found. I think it came out this week on Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, and I'm also working on my video series That Was a Game about fun video game spin-offs. I covered Tetris 2 recently, and I'm hoping in the next few weeks to come out with Rayman Arena, which is a 3D platformer that's basically just a racing game. So it's Mario Kart, but with platforming instead of cars. It's pretty cool. That's on That Was a Game on our YouTube channel. All my friends are right here.
Cool. Chris, what's up with you?
Our episode on Halloween Resurrections, even though it's post Halloween now, came out the week before or the week of Halloween. Mm-hmm. So you can still check it out. You can find out, is Michael Myers a better fighter than who was it?
I don't know. It was a good episode, though. I hadn't seen the movie. It was weird how they broke up the movie too, with a 30-minute Jamie Lee Curtis sequence and then a 60-minute everybody else sequence.
Yes, it's a very strange movie that it has already left my mind, except the Jamie Lee Curtis scene, which was pretty good.
And I think
very good.
That's it for us, Kia.
That's it. All right.
This has been an eternally long episode.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Part 7 of 6 of the episode.
I was just going to end it. Vince, I love you.
Love you too.
Chris, I love you.
We've never met.
And listener, we love you as well. We'll never forget you. I got no jokes. Bye, everybody. Good night.